You apologize when someone bumps into you. It's a reflex. You're walking down the street, someone blindly careens into your shoulder, and before you even register the impact, the words, "I'm sorry," have already left your mouth. You check on them. You absorb the awkwardness so they don't have to. And they keep walking. They don't look back. They don't acknowledge the collision, let alone the apology. And you are left standing there, rubbing your arm, feeling a very specific, quiet foolishness. It happens in bigger ways, too. You loan money to a friend who drives a nicer car than you, and when the payback date comes and goes, you feel guilty for asking about it. You listen to a partner vent for 3 hours about their workday, absorbing their stress, metabolizing their anxiety, and when you finally have a moment to speak about your own fear, they check their phone and say they're too tired to talk. You feel it in your chest, that heavy, hot stone of resentment, but you don't say anything. You swallow it. You convince yourself that being the bigger person means being the invisible person. You tell yourself they're just going through a hard time, but deep down there is a brutal realization scratching at the back of your mind. This isn't an accident. This is a pattern, and you are the common denominator. The cost of living like this isn't just exhaustion, though God knows you are tired. The real cost is the erosion of your reality. When you allow people to take from you without limit, you start to believe that your value lies only in what you can provide. You become a resource, not a person. A charging station for other people's egos. A dumping ground for their unprocessed emotions. You start to look at your phone with dread because every notification feels like a demand you aren't allowed to refuse. Maybe this is you. Maybe it's someone you love who you've watched slowly disappear into the service of people who wouldn't cross the street to help them. It creates a terrifying cynicism. You start to suspect that everyone is a parasite, that human nature is inherently selfish. But that's not true. Not everyone is taking advantage of you, but a specific type of person is. And until you understand the mechanism of why they target you and, more importantly, why you let them, you will keep opening the door to the same ghosts, just wearing different faces. We need to look at the machinery of this dynamic, not to blame you, but to stop the bleeding. The psychological engine driving this dynamic is something called the false consensus effect. But let's call it what it feels like. The projection of conscience. It is the dangerous assumption that other people operate with the same manual of humanity that you do. You believe, fundamentally, that if you are generous, the world will be generous back. You believe that if you sacrifice, others will notice that sacrifice and rush to repay it. You are projecting your own heart onto a blank screen. When you interact with someone, you are subconsciously handing them a map of your own psyche. You think, I would never take the last slice of pizza without asking, so they won't either. I would never leave someone on red for 3 days after they poured their heart out, so they must be busy. You are judging their actions through the lens of your intentions. But here is the brutal truth that psychology confirms. Predators, users, and takers do not have your manual. They don't see your kindness as a contract of reciprocity. They see it as a lack of defense. Think of it like a door. To you, an open door is a gesture of hospitality. It says, "Come in, you are welcome here." To a taker, an open door is simply an absence of a lock. They don't walk through it thinking about how nice you are. They walk through it because it is the path of least resistance. The science of operant conditioning tells us that behavior that is rewarded will be repeated. Every time you clean up a mess you didn't make, every time you accept an apology that doesn't come with changed behavior, you are not being kind. You are teaching them exactly how to treat you. You are reinforcing the very thing that is destroying you. There are 4 distinct ways this shows up. You need to recognize them, because they don't always look like malice. Sometimes, they look like love. The first type is the bulldozer. This is the most obvious, but also the hardest to stop once it gains momentum. The bulldozer operates on entitlement. They don't ask, they announce. They borrow your clothes without checking. They change the restaurant reservation to the place they like without consulting you. They dominate the conversation, interrupting your sentences to finish their own thoughts. Picture a dinner where you haven't taken a bite in 20 minutes, because they haven't stopped talking about themselves. The psychology here is dominance and a lack of empathy. But the wound they exploit in you is your fear of being difficult. You have likely been conditioned to believe that having needs makes you high maintenance. The bulldozer senses this. They know that if they push just hard enough, you will fold because you value harmony more than you value your own voice. You shrink so they can expand. You tell yourself you're being easygoing, but really, you're being erased. Then there is a quieter, more insidious version, the crisis merchant. This person isn't aggressive. They are a disaster. Their life is a perpetual sequence of emergencies that only you can solve. They call you at 2 a.m. because they fought again. They need money for rent because they forgot the due date again. They need you to cover their shift, edit their resume, and fix their relationship. You feel needed. That's the hook. The crisis merchant exploits your need to be the savior. They weaponize their incompetence to harvest your competence. It feels like intimacy, but it's actually parasitism. You get a hit of dopamine from being the reliable one, the strong one. But notice what happens when the crisis is over. They disappear. They go out celebrating with other people, while you're at home recovering from the energy they drained from you. They feed on your stability because they refuse to cultivate their own. The third type is the most confusing. The scorekeeper. This person actually does nice things for you. They buy you gifts. They offer favors you didn't ask for. But every single kindness comes with an invisible price tag. They are not giving. They are investing. They are creating a debt you never signed up for. Suddenly, because they bought you dinner 3 weeks ago, you owe them a ride to the airport at 4 a.m. Because they listened to you vent once, you are now obligated to tolerate their toxic behavior indefinitely. This is transactional leverage disguised as friendship. The psychological mechanism here is the weaponization of reciprocity. They know you are a kind person who hates feeling indebted. They rely on your guilt. They overload you with unasked for generosity, so that when they make their move to take advantage of you, you feel too guilty to say no. You feel trapped in a ledger where you are always in the red. Finally, there is the chameleon. This is the most dangerous type because they mirror you. In the beginning, they seem to value exactly what you value. They love your kindness, they praise your empathy. They tell you, I've never met anyone as understanding as you. They lower your defenses by mimicking your own goodness. But once they are in, the mask slips. The empathy they praise becomes the thing they exploit. They use your understanding nature to excuse their bad behavior. I knew you'd understand why I couldn't make it, they say, after standing you up. You're so forgiving, they say, after betraying your trust. The chameleon exploits your identity. They know you pride yourself on being a good person, so they frame your compliance as proof of your goodness. If you set a boundary, they accuse you of changing. You used to be so nice, they'll say. And that accusation hits you in the center of your insecurity, causing you to drop the boundary just to prove you're still good. We have to reframe what is happening here. For years, you have likely told yourself that you are just too nice. You've worn that label with a mix of pride and frustration. But we need to look at the shadow of that niceness. Real kindness is voluntary. What you are doing is often not voluntary. It is a fawn response. Somewhere along the line, you learned that to be safe, you had to be useful. You learned that if you made yourself indispensable, you couldn't be abandoned. You learned that having boundaries was dangerous. That saying no resulted in loss of love. So, when these people take advantage of you, they aren't just exploiting your kindness, they are exploiting your fear. They are exploiting the part of you that believes you have to pay rent just to exist in someone's life. The shift happens when you realize that boundaries are not punishments. Boundaries are the distance at which you can love yourself and another person simultaneously. When you say no to the crisis merchant, you aren't being cruel. You are refusing to enable their chaos. When you stop apologizing to the bulldozer, you aren't being difficult. You are insisting on your reality. You have to stop projecting your conscience onto people who have shown you, repeatedly, that they do not share it. You have to stop reading the menu to someone who is only there to eat. The goal isn't to stop being kind. The world needs your warmth. The goal is to put a lock on the door. To make your kindness a gift you give to those who have earned it, rather than a tax you pay to anyone who demands it. Ask yourself this: if you stopped doing things for the people in your life, if you stopped fixing, listening, paying, and adjusting, who would still be there? The answer might break your heart, but it will also set you free. The next time you feel that reflex to apologize when someone bumps into you, catch it in your throat. Swallow it. Look them in the eye. Wait for them to speak. And if they don't, let the silence be awkward. Let the tension sit there between you. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to smooth it over. You are not on this earth to be a shock absorber for other people's carelessness. You are here to take up space. Start taking it.